The views and opinions expressed in the following program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of KSMQ Public Service Media Incorporated or its assigns.
Welcome to On Cue. Each week here on On Cue, we'll bring you current information on important topics being discussed in our region. I'm your host, Eric Olson. On today's program, we'll be exploring technology, hunger, and community visioning. Stay tuned for On Cue.
From KSMQ Television in Austin, this is On Cue, connecting interesting issues and interesting people. On Cue.
In 2010, Hunger-Free Minnesota set a goal to close the gap on 125 million meals statewide that people were missing.
David Dayhoff from Hunger-Free Minnesota and Mary Wycombe from Austin Public Schools
will be joining us to tell us how it's going, particularly in our region. Later, Laura Helle will introduce the Vision 2020 project for the City of Austin and what's been going on with it lately. But we're going to start with technology. The Austin Public Schools are introducing technology curriculum to students as kindergartners and keeping it current all through high school. Corey Haugen, Rayce Hardy, and Josh McRae are joining us to tell us how they're going about doing that. Welcome, guys.
Hi.
And before we start, maybe folks at home have always wanted to do this, but I'm going to spring one on you since we've got all these IT brains. Can you fix my laptop, dude? It's seen better days. It's kind of coming apart at the seams there.
I think we saw one just like that the other day.
I don't expect you to, but it's been, it's been beat up a little bit. It's kind of coming apart. Fell a couple of times.
Well, that's just slight damage.
Slight damage.
Normal to me.
This is not the kind of technology they have at Austin High School, folks. And you were talking, Corey, it was interesting that technology means different things to different people. When we talk about technology, I always just go right to internet, computers, but it can mean a lot of different things when you're talking about education.
Absolutely. Technology has a broad definition for us in education. Oftentimes, most people do generally draw themselves directly to the plug-in type technology and the internet. But technology really, by definition, is more about finding efficiencies and making things easier in the learning process. So there's a belief out there that things as simple as a pencil are also deemed technology because they enhance the learning process for students. So the spectrum can be very wide. Again, technology does have an ever-changing face as we continue to advance into more and more different types of mobile deployments.
As a kindergarten educator, how do you determine what technology you're going to bring into the classroom? Because there's so many things out there, and your goal, technology or not, is to educate, get the youngsters from point A to point B. Are there checklists you go through, or how do you decide?
It's kind of it's a learning process for us too. At the kindergarten center, we've gone from having desktop computers in the room with a few desktop stations, and the kids were using those. We've had leap pads and different things like that. Now we're lucky enough to have the iPads, and I think really what it's about is can the kids use effectively to improve their learning. A few things we do look at. First would be differentiation. Like, how can we differentiate instruction so that each child's educational needs are being met? The iPad has apps that allow us to do that. Another thing that we're big on is assessment. You need to know what students know so that you can know where to teach them and where you're going to go with your curriculum. The iPad has apps that allow us to track the students' learning, so as educators we can look at what do they know, what do they not know, and we can adjust our curriculum from there.
Oh, so there are not assignments, but work that you have them do that's only on the iPad, and then independently you can see what each one, how each student is doing.
Yeah, one app, for instance, that we use, I can show you.
Yeah, right here. It's pretty. It's Goldie Gopher.
That's right. Go Gophers.
How am I doing this? Okay.
One app that we've got here that demonstrates that is called Teach Me Kindergarten. And I have this set up for my classroom right now. So I've got 4 students that are in my class on the bottom. So when they come over to the iPad Center, they're going to come in and click on their name. So they'll find their little picture and click their name. And then it'll show the different objectives they're working on. This app has addition, subtraction, some sight words, different things like that. So they'll click play, and they'll be presented with different problems.
Oh,
so
wow.
as they go through the problems, they get rewarded. They'll get to add things to their little aquarium. But what behind the scenes, what they don't know is this is tracking their results. So if they make a mistake on a certain subtraction problem over and over again, later when this child's done using this, I can go on, look at the results and say, oh, they're having a hard time with subtraction problems with -3. So then I can come into the program and set it so it works on more of those problems. Or even outside of the iPad, when I'm doing my math time, I can go to that student and know that they need more practice with this one particular skill.
And are all of their pads hooked up to your computer or so you can see all the students, or not yet?
Not yet, but I'll have different learning groups, and so each group will have one iPad that they'll go to, so their results will be on that iPad. So they'll know to go over to their certain iPad to use it. So their
wow,
results
that's wonderful. And that's kind of a new item for your
This
students?
year is our first year with the iPads in kindergarten, so we're really excited about it.
Wow, that's great. Now, Rayce, I have a question for you. At Austin High, my child in high school, as well as my middle schooler, says we have to have the internet at home to go to do our homework. I think that's a universal question that you hear at home if you're a parent.
I would say that that would be good to have, but it also could be used as an excuse that, well, I couldn't get that done because I don't have the internet at home. But so as was mentioned about differentiating, how he's able to differentiate for the students and meet their individual needs, we also need to make sure that because of accessibility, that there are other ways for students to learn the material and then to also show that what they know and can do. So at least for me, what the technology has done, and in this case, using a more narrow definition than the one that Corey described, is, in my situation, it's the internet and its websites. So the school provides a website for each teacher. So I have a teacher website that all students can, and any parent, anybody can access.
And you can post things on there.
Yeah, and so I post documents on there for them, so in case a student's missed class or missed school for a while, they can go and find that document. But also, what I have the opportunity to teach are classes that are called concurrent, and so the students are taking a high school class and a college class together in receiving high school and Riverland Community College credit in the high school.
And technology plays a role in that somehow?
Yeah, and technology plays a really big role in that because we use both the provided technology from the high school, the website. We also have a Moodle site, which is the high school provides, but then we also have Desire to Learn, Riverland's site. So the students have 3 opportunities. And what it does is, I could really see with an iPad how there's no way that you're going to be around, as you know, with every kid every minute. And the kid can get instant feedback by seeing if they did it right or didn't do it right. But also later on, he and I both have a chance to look on an assignment to see if the student is understanding. And I can also see collectively if it's just one student or if it's all 30. If it's all 30, I'm about 100% sure it's me. If it's one, it's a 50-50 shot. I didn't explain it well, or they didn't do anything. That really helps guide what I'm going to do the next day.
And so, Corey, you're not only mapping out how the technology is going to work inside your system, which for you is the whole district, but you're having to interact with like Riverland to make sure that that system hooks up with the high school. So do you have connections with other educational institutions?
Absolutely, yeah. We work together in conjunction with a lot of different entities to make sure that we have the software solutions provided. Over the last 4 or 5 years, most of those things have moved to the internet cloud. So the technical requirements have greatly reduced and made that flexibility much easier for us to work with other entities. But it's also, we've seen a major shift in the mobile market in the fact that we've got all these applications that are available. And so people are, we talk about access and internet at the home. You know, most of these kids contain the internet in their pocket in the current day and age.
To the educators, what about standards of content that you utilize that's on the internet, as far as, I think, are these things approved by the Department of Education or the bodies that, the school boards that look at, like textbooks, for instance? I can get my hands around understanding how a textbook gets approved. What processes are there for educators for internet?
That's a great question. When we found out we were going to get the iPads, we were lucky enough to have 4 test iPads, and what we did is we spent a ton of time going through different apps, because the App Store can be quite overwhelming. There's millions of apps literally that you can go through. So what we did is we looked at what the Minnesota teaching standards are for kindergarten, and then we tried to base our decisions on apps based on those requirements. So we went in, we tested out a lot, we found some that worked for what we wanted, some that didn't. Put them in front of some kids, saw how they reacted to them, and then this year we're really kind of diving in with them.
Okay. And at the high school, if you see something that you think is going to work, you can integrate that into your class work?
Yeah, that's exactly right. We do that individually as just a teacher in their own room, his or her room, but we also do it department-wise.
And that's, you know, with this 21st century movement and the whole global economy that we find ourselves in, there's this constant battle. And just like, you know, in that global environment, we're competing for jobs and this, that, and the other. School districts also have to maintain that competition level, because if we don't provide students with the means to the technology, nowadays they can go out and find it elsewhere.
Corey Haugen, thanks so much. Josh McRae and Rayce Hardy, was really a pleasure. And great to see you, and thanks for coming. Hope you come back again sometime. Good luck.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, and stay tuned. We'll have more for you here on Cue.
You can watch On Cue anytime by visiting the KSMQ TV website, ksmq.org.
And welcome back to On Cue. I'm your host, Eric Olson. We're going to talk this segment about hunger, specifically as it relates to young people and young people in our region in southeastern Minnesota. I have 2 fascinating guests here to share what's going on in the region to combat hunger. David Dayhoff is Director of Partnership Engagement and Advocacy with Hunger Free Minnesota. Welcome.
Thank you.
And Mary Wycombe is Director of Food and Nutrition Services for the Austin Public Schools.
Thank you.
Glad to have you with us.
Thanks
very much.
Mary, why don't we start locally and then talk about the statewide efforts. What are we looking at as far as young people and hunger? We talk about how many meals they get a day.
Right. What we're finding, and it is fascinating, especially in Austin, Minnesota, our free and reduced participation is increasing dramatically over the last 5 years. I believe we've increased our percentage about 20%. That means that means over 50% of our families in Austin, Minnesota, their children qualify for free or reduced price lunches. And that's a lot, really, for a town of our size.
And you've been with the district 11 years now, so you've seen, I would imagine, as the person responsible for making those meals happen, your job has become much greater with more volume.
Definitely, and we really, really try to make sure that families who would qualify take advantage of those resources. We don't want hungry kids. It's just become a major issue in our district. We want to make sure kids have good, nutritionally sound meals, are not missing meals. One thing I found with working with Hunger Free Minnesota that was totally startling to me is if every student in Austin, Minnesota, who qualified for a free breakfast actually participated, last school year alone, we would have served nearly 300,000 more breakfasts. So these are kids that probably come from families that need a little help, and we're there to help them, and they're really not taking advantage of the help available.
So the help is there. It's just a matter of getting the word out to them.
Correct.
David, are you finding that? Well, for folks who might not be, just give us an update on Hunger Free Minnesota.
Sure.
How that began.
Sure. So Hunger Free Minnesota actually started back in June of 2011, and it's a campaign that's a coalition of both community organizations like the Major Feeding America food banks in the state of Minnesota, as well as United Way and a couple other organizations like Hunger Solutions, as well as some big corporate partners that have put some of the funds behind it. Names people would recognize like General Mills, Cargill, and Hormel is actually Hormel is a big supporter of the program as well. And so, similar to what Mary was just saying, we did some analysis in looking at the year 2010 to try and estimate, how many, what is really the face of hunger in Minnesota right now? And we tend to think of it in terms of food insecurity. And it means not people actually starving, but rather they miss meals in the course of a week or a month or something. Maybe the money runs out, or they just have to make some sacrifices to pay for other things, and food is what gives. And so the analysis that we performed with the help of Boston Consulting Group's office in Minneapolis showed that in the year 2010, Minnesotans missed over 100 million meals. There was a gap of meals that people missed, and so we decided that's the goal we're going to try to close that 100 million meal gap in Minnesota. And there are different ways that we can close that gap. And then one of them is looking at, okay, children are missing those meals too. And we have programs like the school lunch program and the school breakfast program. And it turns out they're not being fully utilized. So one of the initiatives we're working on is to try and work with districts and people like Mary to look at other districts and other best practices around the state and the country. How do we get kids to take advantage of these meals they've had? Because not only do we not want kids to miss meals, obviously, but it actually has a big benefit in terms of performance in school and discipline and a lot of other things that actually makes a difference to get these kids fed first thing before they go to school.
So what do you do? I mean, you can't mandate it, I suppose. No. How do you encourage?
I'll use Sumner Elementary as an example because this year they have done an amazing job of feeding these kids breakfast. We started this school year serving breakfast in the classroom. So we have little baskets. We every morning prepare a basket for each classroom. The teachers send a couple kids down. They pick it up, and it's increased by probably 3 times the number of kids eat breakfast at Sumner than last year.
And that's just what you're doing is changing the environment or the location.
Correct.
Somehow it mattered.
Yeah. And it's not without challenges. It makes much bigger messes in the schools. It does maybe take time away from learning. So the teachers at Sumner have been amazing restructuring their days so that maybe they do reading to the kids first thing in the morning. So while the kids eat their breakfast, it's not lost academic time.
And David, what about, you talk about closing the gap. How do we get there? Not just for young people. Is it just a matter of media or communication telling folks where to go to get meals? You mentioned you have some generous corporations who are donating. Is it a money problem?
It's all of the above. I mean, there's definitely a story that needs to be told and more information that needs to get out, that people who are eligible for things like a school breakfast program, or also there are adults who are eligible for what it's called SNAP, which is the food stamp program. People know as food stamps, but there's a lot of elderly seniors, for instance, whose income is so low that they actually qualify for the program, but they may not know it. So there's lots of instances of people who there's resources from a government standpoint that are available that they can take advantage of. But we also need to supplement what we call the emergency food system, which is really the system of food banks, food shelves, and meal programs that are also a major pillar in terms of anti-hunger efforts everywhere, but in Minnesota as well. And so when we look at closing that 100 million meal gap, we hope to get 50 million more meals out of the emergency food system, which is getting greater volume through food banks and food shelves.
And some interesting things happening with agriculture this year, or more recently with surplus agriculture.
Yes, if you go, so at our website, which is hungerfreemn.org, it actually details the 8 different initiatives we're working on. And one of the key ones that we've done the most on this year is an agricultural surplus initiative. And that's looking at trying to get more food from the farm and primary processor level into the food banks, especially fresh produce. So it's going to be fresh fruits, fresh vegetables. And there's been a lot of instances of that happening on a smaller scale in the past. Channel 1, again, in Rochester, has been a pioneer in doing a lot of this, gleaning apples and things like that.
But aren't they already, they're not getting to market for whatever reason?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and so often, especially if you look at the processors as well, and so this pilot actually that we've just completed around agricultural surplus with Second Harvest Heartland, which is the big food bank that serves the Twin Cities, part of western Wisconsin, and a lot of central and southwest Minnesota, actually had to go directly to processors. So people who are going to grow large quantities of sweet corn that's going to get canned or frozen, and they in fact always grow more than they need because they can't afford, if a hailstorm comes through or the weather's bad, so they actually have surplus under contract with farmers. And in years past, typically, depending upon when it ripens, they just plow a lot of it under because they actually have too much getting ripe at one time that the processing facility could handle. So we worked with, it took a lot of coordinating effort.
Yeah, logistics.
Exactly, but between a combination of Second Harvest Heartland, Cargill donated some space at one of their grain elevators in Savage, Minnesota. Super Value provided a few refrigerated trucks. And then Seneca Foods, which is our partner, that is one of the largest actual vegetable processors in the United States that contracts a lot of sweet corn in Minnesota. They were able to divert over 500,000 pounds of corn that would have been plowed under, sweet corn on the ear, and we ended up taking it, getting it delivered, and then packed into totes. It has to go somewhere, so just the Salvation Army in Austin can only take so much, right? We can't bring a whole truckload of sweet corn and have them get it out. So we actually do an interesting spread it across Minnesota around the food banks and even trade it with other states. So it's gone to 10 other states.
Wow. Yeah, it's nice to have the world's largest private food company based in Minnesota, for logistical help and other things.
Absolutely,
Cargill,
absolutely.
So Barry, what about the local scene? Is there something that folks maybe watching this show, boy, I'd like to help, or do something, even talk to people about it, or I don't know, what can they do?
I think spread the word. I think that a lot of families, and we try, but a lot of families don't understand that if they qualify for a free lunch or a reduced price lunch, that also qualifies them for a free breakfast. And we really want these families to take advantage of that and help these families in that way.
So they can contact like the school office or something?
They can contact the Food and Nutrition office if they think they may qualify for a free lunch, or if they want to help us spread the word. We're more than happy to have help with that.
And Hunger Free, too, there's opportunities, I would assume, to help your organization.
Absolutely. So one thing that people can do just on a personal basis, a lot of people are familiar with donating food to a local food pantry or something like that, but they may not know where to do that. And so on the hungerfreemn.org website, there's actually a food shelf finder. So you can look anywhere you are in Minnesota and you can find local food shelves, and you can also read about the different initiatives that we have going on.
Well, wonderful work. Thank you for being a part of it.
Thank you very much.
David Dayhoff from Hunger Free Minnesota and Mary White from Austin Public Schools. Thank you for joining us on Cue.
Thank you.
Queue up your own comments for On Cue and send them to us at onq@ksmq.org.
Yeah, welcome back to On Cue. And every week on our show, we're going to take a little look at the brand new Vision 2020 project that's going on in Austin. You may have heard about it, but we're going to update you as the weeks progress as to what's going on with that program. Laura Helle from Vision 2020 joins us now, as you will often, I think, on our program, or some of your study folks, your group folks will be joining us. Thanks for being here. Thanks for partnering with us to bring info to people about this project.
Absolutely. We're really excited, and we know that the community is engaged and wants to see what's going to happen next, and this is going to be a great way for us to get the word out. So Happy to be here.
Take us back a little bit to the beginning of this process, and wondering, were there a set of statistics or trends that the leaders in the community were seeing that prompted this discussion to begin, or was it just a matter of, we've got a great community, how can we make it better?
That is a great question. Yeah, I think there were several factors that came together. One was there were some leadership changes at the Hormel Foundation, and there was a lot more community leaders in general talking about possibilities and talking about getting very intentional with the direction that we're going. There were some major employers that were talking about quality of life issues and being able to maintain their workforce and their employees, keep them working and living in Austin. And then there was also an inspiration component where some other communities had some big successes that caught the eye of leaders in Austin. So Dubuque, Iowa, Mankato, some other communities had really posted some great wins, and you know, word gets out pretty fast when somebody's doing something great and others want to follow. So.
And you had a wonderful unveiling of 10 ideas or concepts, and it was quite dramatic. It was a lot of fun too for those of us who were lucky to be there when the concepts were unveiled, which was a long, laborious study process. So now you have, is it 9?
10.
10 groups that are all meeting individually.
Right.
And they run the gamut: environmental, community, team spirit, I like to call it, one of the other groups.
Yeah, yep, exactly. It's what we unveiled in April was 10 vision statements, and so they're a very broad vision of what can happen, and now the committees that are on the ground need to take that from a vision, a picture, to very specific, and they're working on measurable goals. You know, how will we know that our downtown has become a destination? Well, can we measure an increase in sales? Can we measure an increase in traffic? Can we measure an increase in events? You know, those kind of things. So that's the work of each committee, is to take this broad vision, break it down into some goals and some measurement outcomes. One big question that kept coming up over the summer was, well, how will we know when we're done? You know, how will we know when it's the year 2020? How will we know that we've embraced our waterways and so forth? So that's where they've started and been working through the summer and making good progress.
Pretty surprising, the level of volunteer support, at least to me being a newcomer to the region. It seems like you've had quite a bit of folks stepping up and saying, you know, I'll help.
We have. It's been very enthusiastic. People want to be involved. And we know we took a risk by really launching the 10 committees in about May. And so we know that meeting over the summer isn't always possible or easy to do because of so many vacations and trips to the lake and so forth. So we think that even as going into the fall, we'll see more and more folks coming forward. And there is also the component of, you know, some people really like to do that work of taking the vision to the goal, and some people just say, give me a goal and I'll go do it. So we expect that they'll keep coming to the table.
Wonderful, Laura. Well, thanks for being here and thanks for partnering with us. It's exciting to be able to weekly see what's going on in all of your groups, so I'm looking forward to it very much.
Me too.
Thank you very much, Laura. Helle from Vision 2020, and thank you for joining us. We're looking forward to exploring more issues in our region right here on Q. I'm your host, Eric Olson.
On Q is a production of KSMQ Television in Austin, nonprofit public television.